I got so many things I'd love to talk to you about, but there's a sentiment in this film that I would love to start with, and it's this recurring statement that I was really drawn to, and it's written on Officer Harold's fortune cookie, which is forget what you know. So he looks at it a couple of times, and I find it interesting because it has so many meanings here. For one, the audience, it may be this desire to know more about Mona Lisa because we're just dropped into her story and along for the ride. And two, I feel like it's applicable to you as a filmmaker because across your work is this feeling of you excitingly pushing against traditionalism. So naturally, I'm just curious about the origin of that fortune cookie read and the multiple meanings it may possess for you.
That's a very thoughtful and esoteric question to start with, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
I think it says a lot about you that you would be drawn, that your attention would be drawn to one of the more kind of, I would say, deep and esoteric. I think if you watch a movie, you can take it a little bit at surface value and not dwell on it or make it whatever maybe it needs to mean for you. I think it's not that I don't, as a filmmaker, if you're talking about like craft or how I do what I do when I make films, I don't consciously go at anything thinking I'm gonna do something that is different than what I've done, or I'm gonna confuse people or anything like that. I think if anything, for me, I am doing what is most authentically true to how I view these strange moments and these strange twists and turns of life that sometimes are not on sometimes they're on big dramatic scale, sometimes they're on really minutiae, microscopic scales, like the details of life, the details of the strangeness of a moment, of people, of interactions, in the chaos of this carnival of life. And I think that is also present in all my films, the fun house of reality. And I don't think I really think in terms of, I mean, a movie is finite, it's a certain amount of time, but it's like my feeling, my instinct is that it's dishonest in a way for me, thinking like I'm gonna come to one big, hard, final conclusion at the end of this story, because life isn't like that. People aren't like that. Even if you know someone kind of well, most of the people we know, we don't know that well.
Sure.
We don't know everyone's backstory. We don't know how everyone became what they are. And I find it interesting that people are like, I want to know more backstory, because I guess you can know that in a movie if someone gives it to you, but it's like more true to life to me that you know some things and you make assumptions based on those things. And then hopefully if you hang around long enough, those assumptions start to get flipped and twisted and you're wrong about what you thought, in whatever way. So I guess it's a long-winded way of saying, yeah, forget what you know, I would say for me, what I think it is, and for Harold in the context of the story, it's, I just think that in order to learn anything in life, really learn something new, you have to forget something you previously thought. That's like evolution. Sure. That's like, it's necessary. If you hang on to something, and here you are with a man who's confronted with the limits of logic within the span of this story, he gets to a point where he can't figure this all out. So I guess that's kind of some of my thoughts on what that's about. Yeah.
I've always just been really drawn to the details that you place into your film, and
Thank you.
I could sit here all day and just list all the great
I
things
appreciate that. I appreciate that. Some people don't. It's you can go as deep as you want. I always feel like It's actually something Jodorowsky said, so I can't take credit for it, but I really appreciate it, where he was like, you can see as much as you want to see in my films. Like, it's up to you. And it's all good.
Yeah.
You want to just kind of stay here. If you want to keep looking farther. But I really appreciate people that look.
So before I maybe get to some of those details, where did this kind of mentality come from? Was it something you picked up, or did you practice it and then favored the effects later?
That's always just a big part of, I think, my approach. I would say I'm a filmmaker who's surrealistic, fantastical, stylized, and so I'm definitely consciously creating. I wouldn't say it's like a complete departure from reality. I feel like my films are like a fusion of that, an amplified expression of reality, like an amplified expression where it's a little more sensory. I hope it's a little more experiential of how reality can feel sometimes. You know, cinema can do that, like, because you get to do, if you start using different lenses and the music and the sound and the way things move, it's like it can become a full body, all the senses kind of experience, where you feel like you were actually somewhere in a way, like you could taste it almost. And I think that the world building is one of my favorite parts. I think the location and setting is always almost like the first character that I'm thinking of. I spend a lot of time in the place that I'm going to shoot, absorbing it in, checking it out, and imagining how it could be lensed. Because New Orleans is very different. You know, the other two movies were these kind of expansive desert landscapes, and then here I was in this city that was a little more tall, meaning these massive prehistoric oak trees and the architecture of New Orleans. And I wanted to be able to see up higher, so I was on 10 millimeter lenses, really wide lenses. And then you get this more distorted kind of aggressive image, which I was very much like thinking about, like Terry Gilliam's 12 Monkeys and The Fisher King, and like going through like in this visceral with someone in a mental, you know, in a heightened mental state. Robin Williams' character in The Fisher King and Mona Lisa, it's like they're somehow more primal in the way they experience reality, and the lenses help do that. So yeah, I mean, I would say I lay out so many details in advance, all the art direction and stuff, as well as costumes and what the art direction of these characters and how they come to life. And then I feel like it just kind of becomes alive. And if you cast the right people, they really, you know, it's such an important part of it. It's really magical to just kind of let them, because they're so special. All the actors in this film are incredible. Jong Seo is incredible, and you just kind of set her loose in this world, and she just instinctively leads the way. Kate Hudson has such an amazing energy, and she's this weird, conflicting kind of character, but you were with her even when you kind of hate her, and you know what I mean? Like, it's like same thing with Fuzz. It's like creating his reality. Yeah, it's like, I gotta say, one of my favorite characters too.
Yeah.
So yeah, all of them, all the physical space and all of that. Yeah, definitely. It just sets the ship off in a way.
Yeah. That's really interesting, because I was actually going to ask you about, did you have story or character beats firing off first, or did you have specific shots or feelings in mind that you wanted to build around? So I guess it started with location, but did you know where things were going to go, or did you just kind of go on the ride with the rest of us?
Well, script is very a lot of work, and yeah, I figure out everything about the characters, or else I don't know what they're gonna do. It's funny because I've heard comments and I've heard people say like the narrative is thin or something, or she doesn't explain this or that, or something about the script and story, when actually it's really, really super thought out and planned to like the minutia.
Yeah.
In this film, it was actually one of the more, it's got a really direct spine, because really at the heart, you've got a cop chase movie. So you got someone getting out, and they're either going to get caught at the end or not. It's like the fugitive has two outcomes, you know what I mean? Like, sure. So, but it's not that, because my movies it's not just about getting from point A to B. It's about the ride. In this script, I did want her to find this little kind of the secret of the movie, I think, is that in the middle, suddenly there's a tiny taste of real friendship and what that means, and that it is tender and important. And sometimes they happen and they go away, and that's just the ephemeral nature of connecting with people. But like, it was very, very like, because this is like one thing happens after the other. It's one of these, if she hadn't gone there, then gone here, everything is it's almost like one, and it's like one of those nights when you go out and you think nothing is going to happen, and then all these things happen. Yeah. 2 days later in someone else's clothes. It's like, but nothing could have been taken out. Everything, it's almost like one giant long scene in a way.
Agreed.
So definitely very much thought out and planned to be that way. And I have actually a full sketch of a sequel. So I know her whole, I mean, when I designed Mona Lisa, it was the same with Girl Walks Home Alone at Night with Arlen and the Bad Batch, like coming right at it. I'm like, why was she in this prison? Right. I knew like her backstory, her origin story or whatever in North Korea is really cool, but it's like a whole other movie.
Yeah. Or if anything, a graphic novel series. I can just kind of see it taking that direction.
Would be fun. That would be fun. But it would be fun to do the next one, because we're just landing in Detroit. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? We're still going. So just really would love to do that.
Yeah. Well, I hope at some point you actually do release, depending upon like where it goes from here and how it actualizes, but just seeing some of the art that you have, and with like, for instance, I really liked some of the tattoos that Bonnie and Fuzz had, and so I'm looking at like, hardcore vibes. What you see is what you get, and then like,
oh, are you gonna get it?
Am I gonna get it? No,
I'm not yeah. I thought that's what you said. I was like,
no. I just liked what the lettering, and I think that's what it said. But even with Bonnie, like she has like tattoos of possibly men on her that she's X'd out, and so
yes, that's right.
Yeah,
that's one of my favorite ones too. The boyfriend's names X'd out. That's just like so funny. Not even like, can't even like afford to turn it into something else. Just like it's just like a list. Yeah, I loved doing Fuzz's tattoos with Ed, and every single one was like a thing. A thing. Yeah, I don't know if people can see what he has on his face. It's kind of hard to, because he has those glasses on. It's kind of hard to read.
Yeah, to me it just seemed like what you see is what you get, but I couldn't
yeah, that's basically it's what you see is what you are.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Is that what he has written on his mirror too?
On his mirror it says you're doing everything you want.
That's right.
Right.
See, there's a little things
you
here
got those,
that just kind of send you off.
Yeah, that's great. I love that.
In addition to those little things, I'll send you off on this, but I just kind of like some of the language that your characters have. Like, for instance, Bonnie, like my favorite line that she has is, "You look like a good guy," and stuff. So that I'm curious about, like, when you have a line like that has such a weight to it, how do you approach that, either through your writing process or even through like developing the delivery for them? Because there's so many ways that you can deliver that line, and the way that she does it kind of hits the comedic mark.
She is a genius. I mean, Kate Hudson is a genius. She has to get full credit for how that scene is so amazing. And like, to have something, such a weird, rough moment also be so funny. It really, like, funny in a real way, not like, I think that that scene we did rehearse. Craig and Kate and I read through it, because it's like she's talking, she's got so much, she's rambling, and she's kind of really starting to say a little bit of things that are a little bit vulnerable and that kind of show a little bit of her, you know, her tough shell, kind of what's under there. And so we just like played with it. She's such a genius at improvisation and taking it. So during rehearsals, what I like to do is just try it a bunch of different ways, hear what she's saying, because she'll always do something and say something interesting. And then so it was written that way, where I had this idea and a lot of it is there, but then through rehearsals adding to it. And then on the day, she just, you know, it's always like just to let her be loose, and because she's there and with all this stuff going on and bruises and all this, and just to let her do it and run with it. And she just was 100% magic in that scene. She killed in that scene. So
agreed.
Yeah.
Well, I have so many more things I'd love to ask you. I'm gonna have to like pause this later and look at all the book titles that you have there, because I just find picking your brain so fascinating. So now I just want to know what helps develop it.
Yeah, a lot of stuff, huh? Yeah.
Well, this was really fantastic. I really appreciate your time so much.
Thank you. I appreciate talking to you.
Yeah.
Really nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too. All right. Have a good one. Appreciate it.
Okay, bye, Preston.
I knew something freaky was gonna happen tonight. It's a full moon. I like feel it in my ovaries, I swear to God.